Greetings, kindred. This is episode 3 of A Word Podcast. I'm Danielle, Patrice, your host, and thank you so very much for taking the time to support and listen on today. A Word Podcast is now on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. So consider leaving a rating or review at any one of these. Also, if you feel like this podcast may benefit others or they may like it, please share. Sharing is caring. Both would be appreciated and help in growing the podcast. And should you want to connect with me, feel free to email me at rootedblossoms@gmail.com or visit me on my website at www.rootedblossoms.com. This and more information about today's episode and Rooted Blossoms can be found in the show notes. So as I said before, this is episode 3. I'm so excited. And today's episode is a reading of an original piece by one of my favorite poets or writers, David Whyte. And it's entitled Gratitude. It's a part of his book entitled Consolations. And I was introduced to this book in David Whyte through another one of his pieces entitled Solace. And that particular piece spoke to me on a very deep level. For one, because of the piece itself. It is like that. And then second, how it resonated with me in terms of timing of when I was introduced to it. It was 1 month from July 18th, 2017 that my father had passed. And this particular piece really spoke a word into me that I still hold on to today. And so this particular book, David takes everyday words and really gives you a different type of perspective as it relates to the word. He takes words like beauty and beginning, rest and work, and really kind of turn these words into a topic of discussion. And not necessarily with other people, but an internal discussion, how you see things, how you perceive things. So if you don't have the book, I would encourage you to go out and to check it out from your local library. Maybe go to a bookstore and purchase. But it's a very, very good read and not a fast read because you got to take it in. But I would encourage you definitely to get this particular book, and it's called Consolations: The Solace, Nourishment, and Underlying Meaning of Everyday Words. So I chose this particular piece because as we're entering into the holiday season this year, gratitude gives or provides another perspective on what it actually is, what gratitude is, what it looks like in everyday life. So as I read this piece, I offer a few questions for you to reflect upon. What blessings did you experience on today, yesterday, maybe this month, this year? What is something that you are grateful to have today that you didn't have a year ago? And finally, what have you been able to grow, develop, and expand upon this year? And so I encourage you to explore, to give thought, and maybe even capture in words or pictures what comes up. Gratitude. Gratitude is not a passive response to something that we have been given. Gratitude arises from paying attention, from being awake, in the presence of everything that lives within and without us. Gratitude is not necessarily something that is shown after the event. It is the deep, a priori state of attention that shows we understand and are equal to the gifted nature of life. Gratitude is the understanding that many millions of things come together and live together and mesh together and breathe together in order for us to take even one more breath of air. That the underlying gift of life and incarnation as a living, participating human being is a privilege. That we are miraculously part of something rather than nothing. Even if that something is temporarily pain or despair, we inhabit a living world with real faces, real voices, laughter, the color blue, the green of the fields, the freshness of a cold wind, or the tawny hue of a winter landscape. To see the full, miraculous essentiality of the color blue is to be grateful with no necessity for a word of thanks. To see fully the beauty of a daughter's face is to be fully grateful without having to seek a God to thank him. To sit among friends and strangers, hearing many voices, strange opinions. To intuit inner lives beneath surface lives. To inhabit many worlds at once in this world. To be a someone amongst all other someones, and therefore to make a conversation without saying a word, is to deepen our sense of presence and therefore our natural sense of thankfulness that everything happens both with us and without us, that we are participants and witness all at once. Thankfulness finds its full measure in generosity of presence, both through participation and witness. We sit at the table as part of every other person's world while making our own world without will or effort. This is what is extraordinary and gifted. This is the essence of gratefulness. Seeing to the heart of privilege. Thanksgiving happens when our sense of presence meets all other presences. Being unappreciative might mean we are simply not paying attention. Thank you again for supporting and listening to the podcast. Again, reviews, comments, and sharing are appreciated. This podcast could not happen without you, the listeners, as well as the work and support of Gwendolyn Wren, cover design, James Derrick, audio content editing, Donald Goines and Nicholas Graham, sound. Until we connect again, remember to make time for soulful communion and healing connection of breath, body, and spirit.